Happy that you all made the effort to be here, and I'm so happy that we are going to have this reading. After many years, we have returned to Raj Bhavan. First of all, I'd like to thank the Honorable Governor. It's a great pity he is not here, because if he had been here, we would have started on time. Um, on the other hand, um, but it's wonderful that you're all here, and I'd like to tell you a little bit about where we are, just to locate ourselves before we have this amazing poetry reading that we have lined up for you, a banquet actually. Um, the first time we had a poetry reading here, this is a magnificent old building with a great history, which has been used as the Governor's Palace since 1961, but it's several hundred years old in different forms. It occupies even now a 100-acre site of great ecological significance. It's a living ecosystem of very high value, which sustains all kinds of species. A few minutes earlier, actually a while earlier, I had the pleasure of standing with Benel Antau, who is a wildlife rescuer of international repute. He has a wonderful television show you must all watch on National Geographic about animal rescues in Goa. But we were watching a spectacular pair of white bears, absolutely amazing sighting at various times. There's an old church attached here, which also contains the genesis of the name Donna Paula. There's a Donna Paula who's buried in there. There's an old church here where many of us gather. My family, which lives down the road, gather here on Sundays for Mass. So it is a historic site. The backdrop is historic. But in many ways, the great drama, the great story is actually behind us. And what you see here is actually the mother. It's a very moving place. This is a sacred place for me in many ways, because this is the birth of our entire civilization is here. This is the bay, in a way, of the Made, the great Made River. On the left there you have the Zuari. On the right here you have the Mandovi, and they meet at the back of the island called Tiswadi. And as old as human history is, some of you have heard me say this, but I urge you to ask me for the references and I'll provide them. As old as human history has been written, this place, this island of Tiswadi has shown up. Of course, you have nearby, as with the rest of the Konkan, you have Paleolithic, Mesolithic carvings, which show that human history, what you would call modern man's long trajectory, has begun here as well. But also from the Sumerians, the Etruscans, the Romans, certainly into the contemporary period, this island has been well known. It's always been known as an entrepot, a great trading port. 1,000 years ago, it was the Kadambas, and of course, then the great drama that remade the entire world, which is the coming of the West to India, takes place here, right on this very river. This was the global superhighway of the 16th century. The city just up the river here was the largest and most rich trading port in the history of humankind. At that point, it was twice the size of Paris. It was twice the size of London. Much of the world as we know it today was made out here. Prior to that, it was a Persianate cosmopolis for 1,000 years. Many, many peoples, for instance, the Croatians, were here in force before the coming of the Western colonialism, and then remained after. There's a tremendous history here. Right. You are all writers, but one thing you may not know is that one of the world's greatest works of literature was written in that building behind you. Right behind you now, in what is kind of a tourism venue, a staging venue for different kinds of events, is the Aguada jail. Many, many people, of course, from our history were imprisoned there. It's the site of many revered freedom fighters. Members of my own family were interred there. But in the 16th century, here's a different man who was there. This is a 16th century picture. And it's of a man who writes one of the world's greatest works of literature. And this is a contemporary painting discovered by Landeg White, who was the great translator of Camões. And so Camões writes the story of the Portuguese becoming great, which is the story of the Portuguese coming to India. But Camões, like many of the poets we have met here, who you'll be hearing from today, was something of a controversial figure. He got himself into trouble. Aku, you will relate. He got himself into trouble a lot. in his own lifetime. In fact, he fled to India only because he got himself into trouble. And over here in this building, he wrote the Lusiads. And the best way to understand Kamoish is to understand, you should read this book. It's called Kamoish Made in Goa by the great translator Lantek White. And it explains how he became such a great artist in conjunction here with his experiences here in India. So today we have a lineup of poets, but first a twist. We are going to start with my friend Vasudendra, a reading from my friend Vasudendra's book. And Vasudendra, who has written a contemporary Indian classic of short stories called Mohana Swami, I highly urge you to get it. It's one of my favorite books. Has also written an epic novel in Kannada. It's an absolutely fine book. You're going to have a discussion about it tomorrow. And it tracks from Lisboa to Goa to Vijayanagara, which is equally connected in the 16th century and is called Tejo Tungabhadra. And part of the apex parts of some of the part of his novel take place right here. Vasudendra, please.
Yeah, it's a great coincidence actually. My climax of my novel happens here actually, so at this place. So I'm reading that climax here. Just a brief before I go, it's like Albuquerque's Portuguese, right? He has thrown out of this island and he's waiting there actually. So Albuquerque has got 5 or 6 ships along with his Portuguese as well as Vijayanagara king soldiers. He has got support from Krishna Devaraya. So he's staying there, and here Adil Shah's place. Adil Shah is sitting here actually. So that is the scenario. And what the Portuguese have done is they have kidnapped some of the Muslim women from this Goa, and they have put them in the cabins of those ships without the knowledge of Albuquerque, and they are using those women for raping day and night. Okay, that is the scene. So I'm coming, and they are trapped. They cannot come here because Adil Shah is already sitting here and he will kill them, and they cannot go back to this thing because Albuquerque is adamant that he needs this particular island. Means Goa, he wants it because it's a nice port. So that's the scenario. My hero name is Gabriel. He's a protagonist here. He comes from Lisbon. So this is about that in the ships. Gabriel couldn't meet Timoji for the next several days. Timoji is another soldier from the Vijayanagara. He assumed that he must be busy mourning the deaths of his friends and relatives in Goa and helping the survivors. Because of this, Gabriel hadn't had much to eat. Albuquerque had further reduced the worm-infested biscuit rations. There were monsoons, they were not short of drinking water, but how long could one survive on handfuls of rainwater alone? Several rumors did the rounds on the ships. Unable to bear the hunger anymore, many Portuguese soldiers have jumped into the river and swum to Panji. The Adil Shah has accepted the deserters into his numbers with a great show of mercy. He has fed them and given them new clothes, but they have all been converted to Islam and given new names. Many Portuguese soldiers have been circumcised and have Khan as their names. Another rumor was that not only was Albuquerque going to reduce the rations, but he was also planning to throw all civilians on the ships into the river. He had thought that they only needed soldiers in a terrible moments like this. If he somehow managed to reduce the number of mouths to feed, they might live longer and continue to fight. The others were dispensable. Now, my protagonist is a chronicler, so he is a scribe. What about a mere scribe like me? Will I be thrown in the river too? He can easily replace me with another scribe later. Are my days numbered then? Gabriel shivered at the uncertain future. The situation of Mumtaz is another Muslim lady who has been kidnapped and kept there. The situation of Mumtaz was even worse. The unfed sailors had been too weak to rape her. and that had meant no more food for her. She cried in hunger and sometimes fainted from weakness. Although Gabriel shared his already impoverished rations with her, it was barely enough to keep one body and soul together, let alone two. They have used me to my last drop of blood, my brother. Now they will fling me into the river. I will be crocodile fodder. She lamented. Gabriel did not know how to comfort her. Everyone, what would we do but follow his orders? We have cooked it as best as we can and seasoned it with salt and pepper. Many who have eaten it claim it tastes good. The servant explained hesitatingly. Gabriel retched, but he couldn't vomit as there was nothing in his stomach. Kindly take that packet away. I don't want it to remain here. He begged them, but they wouldn't listen. Sir, it disgusts you at first, but later the maddening hunger will make you eat everything. Please don't throw it in the river. If you don't want it, there are others who want it. They said and left. I would sooner die than eat that rat, Gabriel decided. After so many things happen, I'm skipping it. I'm just coming to the last paragraphs. Gabriel was boiling with rage, hunger, and helplessness when he returned. The Albuquerque calls him and goes there and comes back. He doesn't get any food there as well. Albuquerque had not so much as given a respective ships in their old clothes. Gabriel cursed his luck for landing him in this living hell as he returned to his cabin when he spotted the packet of food he had discarded earlier that day. He hesitated for a moment and then grabbed the dead rat by its tail and dusted the ants of it. With trembling hands, he brought the rat to his mouth. His tongue tasted the salt and pepper on it. He bit off a small piece and chewed it greedily. He liked it. He began devouring it. Half the rat vanished in just a few moments. His stomach felt a wave of relief. He let out a small belch. At that, Mamta spoke in a feeble voice. She is in the next cabin. From that neighboring cabin, Gabriel, my brother, won't you give me some too? Gabriel was stumped by the pathos of the situation. I am eating a roast rat, Mamtaz, he said. Well, then give me a bite of it. This hunger is unbearable. I think I will die if I don't eat now, she said pitifully. Gabriel handed the remaining rat to her. She ate it quietly. He expected her to vomit, but she didn't. Gabriel was disgusted by his situation. I cannot live like this anymore. I must be free of this fool Albuquerque, he decided. Thank you very much.
What a wonderful way to begin. Thank you so much, Vasudendra. Luckily, all of us have eaten. Also, it confirms many of my suspicions about the 16th century, frankly. Now for an incredible banquet of poetry. I'm not going to speak very much, but we're going to start with one of the formidable young voices in Goan literature, Mamta Vedlekar. Please.
First of all, I would like to thank the organizers of GALF for giving me this wonderful opportunity to present my poems in front of the finest poets of India. Thank you. The first poem is the translation of my Konkani poem in Hindi. I'm going to read the Hindi translation. Okay.
Thank you. Well said, Jerry.
फोनकुला काळजाक पडलेली फोनकुला भरून येनात केन्नाच म्हजी सपनां पोन्ने हावेस मनांतल्या मनान उलयता एकटेच जी भास गजालींनी गुठलावन तुका सांगची आसा ती पडून मरता त्या फोनकुलांत माती कितली भरली तातून तरी रोमतात पांय खोल खोल आनी पडटात दुखाच्या सगळ्यात काळख्या पाताळान सोंपता अशेंच काय सगळें उलोवंक उरना कांयच सांगूंक उरना कांयच आयकूंक कांयच उरना उरता ते फोंडकूल तुज्या म्हज्या भितर, काय मदीं तुज्या आनी म्हज्या. ते हजारांनी वर्साचे रूख तुवें रोयिल्ले, हजारांनी वर्साची सुकणीं तांचेर, हजारांनी वर्साची माती. खंय वयतलें हें सगळें? व्हाळ सगळे सुकून वयतात. आडटा गो सगळो मोग हळू हळू. आडटा आतां म्हजेंय काळीज, रावू तरी खंय. आतां तर म्हज्या गोंयच्या काळजाकूय फोंडकूल पडला. देव बरें करूं. The second poem is a translation in Hindi. शब्दों के पेट में, शब्दों के पेट में कई राज छिपे होते हैं. शब्दों को सांस लेने के लिए, आंखें मलने के लिए, तुम्हारे सामने जम्हाई लेने के लिए, मुक्त होने के लिए तुम्हारे सामने समय लगता है बहुत. गुलमोहर की गंध में बारिश का गीलापन कैसे महकता है, और तब मैं कैसे हंसती हूँ आँखों से, बताने से क्या तुम समझ पाओगे. और सुबह सुबह बादलों में छिपा सूरज थोड़ा सा नम, कुछ कुछ सफ़ेद, कुछ कुछ पीला कैसे फैलाता है, देख पाओगे तुम शब्दों में. अब के बारिश डरी डरी सी बरस रही है, पत्तियाँ भी हवा में डरते डरते ही झड़ रही है. बदलाव का ये व्याकरण समझ पाओगे तुम. सच जैसा झूठ है वो, झूठ सच जैसा. पैरों तले मक्खियों की तरह मर रहे हैं कोई, गिरकर, टकराकर, कुचलकर. घिसे चप्पल, फटे घुटने, खून से सने पैर दिखेंगे तुम्हें एक रॉ पैरेलल फिल्म की तरह. And the last poem is also a translation of the Konkani poem in Hindi. आँच. कड़ाके की ठंड में कलेजे जम गए हैं सारे, फिर भी वे आंसुओं से सींच रहे हैं एक अनंत भूमि हरी भरी. मिलकर एक साथ वे खोद रहे हैं सख्त माटी, इतने और उतने इंच की खोखली छाती. वे गा रहे हैं गीत तारों के, जिनके पैरों में छाले पड़े हैं, नाखून उखड़ गए हैं. वे उन नाखूनों से मिट्टी खुरच रहे हैं. वे बीज छिड़क रहे हैं कल के, पर बहरे कानों तक पहुंचता नहीं है कुछ भी. बेवकूफ़ डिब्बे नहीं सुनाते वो कहानी. बेवकूफ़ डिब्बे, बहरे कान, बदज़बान चेहरे खोद निकालते हैं बंदूक, चाकू और तलवारें, छोटे झंडे, और जो होते हैं खून रीसने तक उनकी हथेलियों पर. वे यही करते आए हैं, माटी को कीचड़ कहते आए हैं. पर फिर भी अनंत ये भूमि और भूमि का अनंत इकट्ठा करता है बल सपनों में किसी के. मेरे सपनों में भी माटी आती है आजकल और देखती रहती है मुझे आँखों में आँखें डालकर. शब्द निगलकर मौन थूकती है. मेरा जिस्म ठंडा हो जाता है बिल्कुल शव हो जैसे. तब मैं कविता की आँच में सेकती हूँ खुद को. धन्यवाद. थैंक यू.
Friends, we are privileged to have amongst us one of the great masters of language of India. Alan Seeley is known very much as a novelist, but he's a master of forms. Extraordinary facility with all of these different forms. Today is a special treat because we are going to hear his poetry. Sir.
Going to be reading from a book called Zelaldinus. Zelaldinus is simply another name for Akbar. Akbar had some Jesuit priests at his court, and they were sending letters to Rome, and they didn't know how to say Jalaluddin. So they said Zelaldinus in Latin. But as much as a book of poems about Akbar, it's a book about Fatehpur Sikri. And those of you who've been there will know that there's a hill there, and at the top of that there's the fortress, which is looked after by the ASI, the Archaeological Survey of India. This poem is called Keystone. Every morning in Fatehpur Sikri, the masons of the ASI secretly remove a series of weathered stones. In a workshop below the palace, each stone is faithfully replicated in the image of the ideal ancestor. Every afternoon, the new pieces are cunningly cemented back in. When a fresh piece is lodged, a suspect piece beside it is marked. Exact copies of stone lattice work are inserted where worn pieces once hung. Stone by stone, building by building, the palace is renewed. Where brick or rubble was used instead of stone, brick and rubble are used. The mortar corresponds to a medieval recipe stated in the Aini Akbari. 3 parts of gravel to 1 of lime, with brick dust and molasses mixed in. Already dead. The Archaeological Survey accepts this truth. Philosophically, it implants stone after stone up to the keystone itself, till a perfect replica stands on Sikri Hill, and nothing remains of Zelaldinus city except the idea of it. Well, what happens is that a tourist by the name of Irv, not Irwin, arrives in Fatehpur Sikri and sees a ghost. And he recognizes the ghost. It's the ghost of the emperor. That's right. Because he spent all his childhood years in history classes. But what he didn't know was that the emperor was looking back at him. And he says, "Oh, I recognize you. But you've changed, you've gone old. Your jowls are sagging. Majesty, you have not changed at all." He said, "Come, let me show you my city." And he takes him to the sunken garden. This poem is called Princeling. The sunken garden of. See that boy by the gazebo there? Watch him pace the lawn, reciting as he walks. No childish toy to distract him. Oblivious of the water race, whose stone-cut, fish-scale motif ruffles crystal water into lace. My grandson, who, when he can relieve my toper son, that's Jahangir, Akbar was disappointed in his son, and he pinned his hopes on his grandson. When he can relieve my toper son, will rule. He'll build the Taj Mahal, transmuting low to high relief. 9 years old, no better age in all the world. At his age, I was storm-tossed, dragged through mountain passes in my father's thrall. So Humayun had been kicked out of his kingdom, right? He was a fugitive in Afghanistan. His kingdom lost, my schooling too. I learned to count with rooks. I learned to skip and run with cheetahs, crossed icy streams, burning desert sands, made fishhooks of nibs, an intellectual's son who cannot hold a pen. Akbar was illiterate. Why, to this day, I love the smell of books and fumigate my schoolmen. Schoolmen. I heard that. Schoolmen as in academics. in the medieval sense of schooling. One of the other people at his court is Abul Fazl. Abul Fazl was prime minister, you could say. He was also the author of the Akbarnama and the chief flatterer. So this next poem is called Heart-Ravishing Sayings of His Majesty. Absolute zero is wider than true north. True north is farther than a neighbor's wife. A neighbor's ox eats twice the measure of thine own. East is east, but measure your bread by the baking stone. People in stone houses should not glaze to the south. The stolen mango is sweetest in a drought. East is south when the world leans on its elbow. The former light of the world got off his tiger. Are you? The paper dragon should beware the candle by the bed. In the country of the toothless is the best head. Better a stale fish fry than a bad ghazal. This poet's a right pain in the Abul Fazl. And the last line is one of those jokes where the punchline is delivered first, and then the rest of the joke follows. Okay? So here's the punchline. His Majesty says, "Neither can I." Ha ha. Remember that. The rest of the joke is, "Majesty, I want a divorce. She can't sleep with the lights on. I can't read in the dark." He's illiterate, so he can't read in the dark and he can't read in the light. It doesn't really matter. Okay, so then Irv and the ghost have a big quarrel. It's summertime and it's hot. So one goes off one way and Irv leaves. But he comes back. I've been to Sikri 7 times. And here is a visit that Irv pays in winter. Irv, you're back. Majesty, I couldn't keep away. Count your blessings, Irv. I can't bear to stay. Listen, you're a storyteller. You can embody me. I'm sorry I was rude about your profession. Some of my best friends are novelists. Senegalese, a Kiwi, but they all go home. I can't go past that gate. Come on, embody me, walk me away. I've been too long on this hill. There is a remedy, Majesty, but it's worse than the disease. Nothing could be worse, Irv. You'll have to do as I say, Your Highness, the way my characters do. Done, says Zelalinus. It's not just your characters that obey you when you write, Majesty. The whole world does. In that sense, begging your pardon, I'm a more absolute monarch than you. Says Zelalinus. A mountain is when I say so on the page. A gun goes off when I pull a trigger that wasn't there before. Remember, I can't write. Narrate then. Declare, command, say, leaves appear on this bare branch. That smacks of heresy, Irv. It's the only way out of here, if you really want that. More than anything, Irv. Story yourself out then. Say, Zelaldinus walks down the Sikri road. Are you sure about this? I won't be struck down. Okay. Zelaldinus walks down the Sikri road. What's this? What's happening to me? You're walking down the Sikri road, like you said. I can't go like this, Irv. I'm not dressed for one. And I need ostriches and eunuchs and things. Create them, but then you'd be back where you started. This is something you have to do alone, Majesty. Stop me, Irv. Stop yourself. Say, Akbar halts. Akbar halts, Akbar halts, Akbar halts. Just the once you've stopped. Have I? Ah, well, yes, I have. Akbar returns then. There, you've got the hang of it. Look, Irv, can't you embody me in one of your stories? What sort of story? Oh, passion, romance. An old man needs a love story. All right, listen. Here are two lovers. See them? No. Okay, here's Percival. Yeah, something moved, Irv, just there. Percival of Bombay. Yes, he's taking shape. Maybe wipe Bombay. Another Pale-Puri blockbuster and I'll puke. Percival of Gal. You mean Kolkata. Puke some stuff there too, Irv. Gal, not Kol. Percy's an Anglo. Free school. No rope trick. No arse lick. In love with, let me see, a Paki. I like this game, Irv. Well, here, now, visa problems. She's stuck there, Karachi, he's here, Gal. She needs a name, Irv. Or you'll make her a Parsi. Percy's Parsi. We'll call her Naz. Nice name, Naz. Crush from Delhi University days, sir. So Percy and Naz, we have to get them together. But how? Easy peasy, Irv. He can walk across the border. Yes, but he could get lost. He needs a guide, someone who's been that way, done the route. That could be me, Irv. I was born there. Majesty. That sets up the story for the rest of the book. And I was going to read you, I'm running out of time, a poem by Naz, Waiting. I'll just read you a couple of love poems out of this cross-border romance, which was happening a lot at the time I was writing. I won't read the Naz, it's a bit too long. All right, I'll read you a very short one. First kisses, so short. First kisses. First kisses, you remember them, Majesty? Of course you do. What's 400 years? I read you one last love poem, and it's a love poem to not a woman, but a baby. It's called Secret Lullaby. Secret Lullaby. Do you never go beyond the mesh on your cradle? Do you never go beyond the slats on your cot? Do you never go beyond this threshold with the bolt hole? Do you never go beyond the elephant gate? Do you never go beyond your father's hailing? Do you never go beyond chapter 5? Do you never go beyond the knot of her drawstring? Do you never go beyond one wife? Do you never go beyond 6 daughters? Do you never go beyond the Khyber Pass? Do you never go beyond the black waters? Do you never go beyond the moon's broad face? Do you never go beyond the hem of God's garment? And I will love you all my days.
Wonderful. I, Alan Seeley, will be in conversation with me tomorrow. I urge you all to come for it. Friends, in many ways, the contemporary cultural identity of Goa has a lot to do with the work of Ranjit Hoskote. It doesn't require much of an introduction here, but I'd like to thank him because this is his last appearance at GALF this year. Thank you so much for being part of this journey, Ranjit. It means a lot, and looking forward so much to your reading. Please.
Thank you so much, Vivek. It's really marvelous to be back here, actually. And thank you all for being here this evening. Where was it today that this business of the Bombay poets came up? Was that the discussion with Robin? Yeah, Robin. Yeah, so because the sea and rivers recur in my poetry, people assume that that has something to do with Bombay. But what a lot of people probably don't realize is that although I was born there, I spent the early and the happiest years of my childhood here in Goa. So it is this coast and these rivers that find avatars in my poetry. I'm going to start with a poem called Miramar, which is dedicated to you, Vivek, as you well know. Miramar. It goes like this. Watch that shape as it stretches itself into moon, cloud, tunnel between worlds, trail of ash blue leaves. Watch it chase the tail ends of words drifting away from what they mean, birthing echoes that ask, will there be time for you to bridge these Casuarina islands, yawing on a tide of fireflies, to turn your back on lighthouse and seawall and be the foam on the crest of the breaking wave? Can't ignore the profound presence of the sea here, so I'm going to read this one called Retreat. This floor is wet with the sea's retreat. A draggled wing drapes its shadow on the bell tower. Admiral, your telescope, hold fast, the storm could have knuckled you to the floor. Voices wash through the sailor's sleep. He scoops darkness from darkness. The surveyor continues to look for a world at the other end of his spyglass, knowing it's out there, a distant cousin to the one that's blowing up around him. This one's called Witness. Speak, earth, in constellations of dew bud and darkening ray, turning to coal and slate in the cold mine shaft where I laid my hand on cryptic passages carved from tidal night, while voices hurried through the locked air. Men with sharpened arrows, look for him. I've found the seedbed, earth. I wait for you to say, it's time. Let me tell you why you're here. And this is a companion piece to that. It's called Rock. Also comes from a childhood experience of standing at a precipice, possibly a modest precipice, but it seemed rather severe at the time. Here, in these parts. Rock. Now call it rock, this edge between your feet and blue, on a scarp thrust up from the seabed, Uma Grande Onda, the nearest house a mile away, the nearest voices traveling overhead through cables, tossed from pylon to pylon. Jump and you'll be one with all there is to know, the missing piece of the puzzle joining the unknown. Its lava magnet heart still casting a field through moss and bramble. The rock holds you in place. This one's called Eclipse. I suppose I chose things that had profound memories of here. In this case, that incredible laterite, the presence of laterite in walls and the soil on your clothes, on white shirts like this. Eclipse. You waited all night for the eclipse. A panther loped down to the lake and swallowed the moon. Another night, you thought the wind had called for truce. The moon never crossed the laterite border. A third night, searching in this field where the sky had rained stars, you found the moon, buried in a furrow that a yoked bull had measured in loops from left to right to left, turning and returning. Speak, lunatic angel. Which was the right way? Was I implement or impediment? All night the eclipse waited for you. Maybe I'll read a couple of poems that then shift to the question of what may be said, what may not be said, and what is ranged against saying altogether. This poem's called Redacted. This poem was not found in his manuscripts, not secreted in the labyrinth of his conversations, not slipped into the transcripts of his published interviews, not heard on the bootleg recordings of his lectures, not tucked into the dossier of photographs in his archive, not located on the hard drives he left behind, not sorted among his Xeroxes and index cards, not dispersed among the notes of his entourage, chased by prosecutors, fanning as the wind, nothing conclusive, you understand. This poem may never be found.
Wow.
In this country of silence. In this country of silence, soldiers are burning newspapers. Missing hosts call to give their baffled guests directions to the East Harbor, which fills with the foghorns of unseen ships while plumbers hunt for silver spoons, hoping their ladders won't give way. In this country of cunning, patrons looking for doors in the wind find that bats read floor plans better than architects. Dalby, try not to take that personally. Find that bats read floor plans better than architects. What can I say about this magic show when across the shriveling hours I see the shops in the market bringing down their shutters and the clouds apologize as a sandstorm rises in this country of exile. Charred wisps of newspapers float across the river. No drumbeat follows, no plucked string shivers. In their wake, the sun is a searchlight. The jars in every stall brim with strawberry juice, and this tongue's gone dry, waiting for refugee songs to return.
Wow.
Two last poems. In the mouths of soldiers. And this last poem is called Lesson. It's for a young colleague, a poet and a scholar called Asya Zahur, who lives between. I suppose you'll get the reference. Lesson. The professor warned us not to say a word. He turned to the blackboard and drew a line through our country with his screeching chalk. Wrote two names to identify its broken parts. From today, he said, you can forget your flag. Leave your spoken language at home. The wind rattled the classroom windows. He'd forgotten to chain it to the bent willow. The boatman on the lake outside was singing. The professor made a note to abolish him. We won't be needing these walnut screens, he said. I'd like all of you to be completely transparent. When he clapped his hands on our desks, burying them for years in snow.
Wow.
Sensational. What a magical evening is unfolding. In a way, this continues the conversation that we had earlier at the festival, where Ranjit was speaking to Robin Gangong about his work in his literary life. It was a marvelous session. I'm very pleased to move now to Robin. It means a lot that he came for this festival. It means a lot at this time. His presence here. He's had a very busy day because he's been on stage 3 times. But this is the last, I promise, Robin. And we are in for a very special treat. True national treasure, Mr. Robin Gangong. Vivek. Just one poem, and I'm afraid it's as long as 3 poems. Bear with me. Winter Chronicle. If you were to put a new heart in me with your meager lips, on the cold face of these walls, a blue day will break on the brooding hills. A dead wind will rise with spring, and a banished sun will be recalled from exile. If you would give me a new heart at the cruel end of my day. Stories between hearts and territories, his cunning shops with which he hopes to dominate. So here begins the city of the fortune hunters. When man devised means to leave himself alone, he exists like a beast, eating, defecating, his dreams growing wild with his reasoning, his loneliness added in cold figures in narrow, dingy rooms, and converted into a learned beast, he merely roams in a civilized jungle. What happens to immaculate voices embalmed in pages of clammy rooms? What happens to learning and purist in streets and on pavements? My love, I have only inherited this foolish legacy even before we existed. Now, I tell you the other truth of the same river which gives us voices and wets our eyes. I disclose the nakedness of our skin from leaves and feathers. I bear the latent music in our souls from birds in the sea. I am talking of the love we borrowed from animals, but not the sorrow we weave from our human bonds. When I tire of man's feats, his proud trophies, his patent discoveries and inventions, I return to the blunt end of desire, and like any solitary man who always searches when nothing comes his way, I live in dread of strange timepieces, vanquished by the day and quarantined by night. My love, an unknown presence, lurks everywhere, and neither prayer nor logic can drive the names away. Turn as rice and wine to earth, but think of me as your day and your night, not the day which begins with the clock's axiom, with traders and soldiers united by a collective desire, with guns cleaned and oiled and secured of smooth functioning, and butchers washing dried blood from their blocks into small rivers, with grocers renovating early vegetables. Restive as ants, everywhere man wants to plant his flag. Savagery by splitting the atom, by raining obscene death from the skies, death which clings to the flesh of children in faceless hamlets. Bound to brutal history, which refines lying, man defers his lessons, and one hand never washes the other. So we continue with hours beginning with torture particles, inhaling the fetid breath of machines, and even his young are not spared when they are made to perform like circus animals before sadistic adults. But civilization throws ashes in his eyes, covering him in foppery, persuading him to cultivate opera in evenings and sip vintage, to hang masterpieces on walls and dissect learned books, gentling his tongue until death sends his emissary, soliciting man's presence. And the animals draw near, bearing guns and grenades, and they wouldn't even reveal which century we're living in. My love, night flings its dark shroud across the hills, but we have already paid the price of the boatman. We know death, but our lives are dear, although the grim raven priests of time are wheeling above us. And in the mountains, with their great rains, your name grew out of earth, burning again in the heart of time. So I shall survive the storm of leaves and words.
I shall salvage the wreck of sunken youth by yielding to retrieve broken things, if the rain also stitches the fissures of earth. And I seek growth and moisture, not the dark weight of a stone, unwilling to grow old with a censorious tongue, seedless, resigned to death, petrifying by degrees. My love, even the darkness is broken by howls and dripping water. The clock again awaits dawn. But when I uncovered the word in my hand, it only spelt loneliness. My love, night conspires with the wind, whispering black secrets once more. If only you would give me your hand. A day dressed in blue will dance on these cold walls, consuming my winter to winter sadness. Thank you.
Thank you so much. What an interesting resonance between the conversation you had earlier and kind of this non-direct dialogue. Ranjit was talking about Bombay poets. We're poo-pooing the idea of Bombay poets, but one idea that is coming very strongly to me at this festival is, despite these various poets being grabbed by other narratives, that was a Shillong poet. And I'm very excited to hear another of my favorite and one of the great Shillong poets, the one and only Mamang Dai. Where's Mamang Dai? Please come and join us. If you don't mind me calling you a Shillong poet.
Thank you, Vivek. 4 poems, they're not very long. The first one, Innocent Danger. Now this poem draws from Arunachal folklore about snakes and man. You know, we believed snakes once wore beads, but man stole their beads. It's a longish story, and that's why we have been bitter enemies ever since. The title of the poem is taken from an interview with Rom Whittaker, A Life Less Ordinary in Round Glass Sustain, Innocent Danger, and we had this wonderful book launch, Snakes of Goa, this afternoon. My grandfather said, wear your beads. I'll give you a tongue lashing if you lose your inheritance. Red, yellow, black, white. Once upon a time, we wore beads. Brothers and friends with the crab, tiger, and bear, until we met the sons of Tani, that's the Adi word for man. Until we met the sons of Tani chasing a bead thief, they said, guilty or not. And so, one day long ago, we were deprived of our beads. Elder brother lost his fangs. I was thinking of the constrictors. Cursed with flies and hornets into a pit of loathing. We survived to dwell in other worlds, climbing to the sky in a map of stars, curled around an ancient staff in a symbol of healing. No one remembers, but I remember what happened to us. Faced with extinction, in the inscrutable moment of a sudden encounter, pay heed. Venom is a bitter drop triggered by the memory of our lost beads. There are places where we thrive. In Leporiang, that's a place in Arunachal where the Guardian actually came and sent people because there was a new species of a snake. We met a man, not sinister, his eyes aglow with wonder, asking, what is Bharta? Bharta? The wise ones would say, one of us, there is no other. If you remember, we were a symphony of life and minstrels together. In the garden of time, the crocodile carries the sun, sailing free under Polaris, the wandering turtle wanders, playing his flute. The oasis is a memory of rain. Beloved of the sun, the long dune stretches, dreaming a summer in the playground of kings, chasing a river with eyes and limbs and the visage of a god. Sometimes beads of water float on the horizon. The land is a master of disguise, a burial place, a mirage, a resurrection. A man turns into a date palm nourished with dreams of rest and beauty, waiting in ancient vigil with the breath of sons and daughters, oceans and continents, tracing a memory, through aeons breathing a garden, a lake, to worship under the sky again, above the ruins of temples and tombs, lifting your gaze, beloved of the sun, scented with rain, crossing from darkness to light over a bridge of bones. This is, you were talking about Shillong, so this is once upon a time in Pasighat. Pasighat is my hometown. My sister is here, Ponungiring also. We're all Pasighat poets, and we do have little gatherings now and then, just amongst ourselves, you know, and we talk as if we are the greatest, the best, there by the river and the wind. So this is once upon a time in Pasighat, without Brad Pitt and Hollywood. The house is unswept. Never mind whoever comes. Bamboo leaves scraping the floor. My friends are of a different sort. If you see a fly, do not lift your white hand, my love. The cobweb in the corner. If the town lights die, we'll sit with the wind. Inside, outside, my friends are of a different sort. Each star has its soul. In your sleeping eyes, my love, dreams will rise and fall, slowly coming to rest. When the house grows old, tomorrow our children will know timelessness with friends of their sort. Under the broad roof, slanting beams of light, the beauty of bone, the universe on the walls. My last poem, this is, I had said this morning, if I drop names, it is done with fond remembrance and regard. This is inspired by Manohar Shetty. I had written it quite a few years by selfies from Kalangut. The evening subsides with the soft shine of a raven's wing. There's the brown tree offering rest, still strong after generations of seafaring, with maps wedged in the branches, dripping with heat of islands and the dance of continents. The tide is rolling back, holding hands. The waves have swept away the beach balls and doused the fat Cuban cigar, a flaring dot in the wind. This is Manohar's words. What WhatsApp will capture leading on to a place where all places meet this Christmas? Vivek, Manohar, and Mauzo are staying home. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. An unlikely but relatively fun-sounding party. Friends, tomorrow morning, the morning will begin with Jerry Pinto, Mustansi Dalvi as well, but Jerry Pinto reading from his translations of Narayan Surve. And the evening, the festival will end with Jerry Pinto reading, singing, and he is now saying he insists on dancing. His new translation of Babhangs from Tukaram. We're in for a treat, Jerry Pinto.
It would help me if you closed your eyes. I'm reading a poem that I have not read before. I haven't read it out loud. But I thought it is time to be brave. Walking away with an attempt at grace. For S, who made this poem happen. On second thoughts, not for S. Or for the absence of S? No. For me and S? For me. For me without S. That's the dedication. For me without S. First came the polite brush off. I'll call you back. Then, let's do this Saturday morning. And hard on its heels. I'm saving a company that's going under. Talk to you when I'm done. I'm paranoid about this kind of thing. So I wind back to our last meeting, the front seat of your car in Bandra. And I have work to do, but there's a farewell kiss. I take out this kiss now. It was once a deep red velveteen flower. It's a bit black now at the heart. You are the kind of person who has transcended work. I have work to do. Except for the occasional saving of a company going down under lockdown, no doubt. But the last meeting is warm. That parting was warm too. And the kiss satisfied me. Did it not satisfy you? Diagnosis for Jerry. You're imagining things. That old problem, poor self-worth. Then came the slammed door. Birthday wishes unacknowledged. Not even an emoticon? Is that company still? Follow-up email in case you didn't get my diagnosis for Jerry. You're right, it's over. And still that small green hope pushing through the soil of other botched relationships. It's that company. No one checks email these days. I'm about to try again when I remember a time I slammed a door and stood with my back against it, wishing that it phone. I delete my email. I turn to walk away with an attempt at grace. Where even then that grace attempted is only clumsy pathos. And clumsy pathos in retrospect is wounding pathos. And I say to myself, Jerry, the world is big, but in this corner you have been forgotten. No matter. There are other rooms, other hearts. They will make up. I know they will. This is not the first time, nor is it likely to be the last. Annealed before. Space has annealed before. But still such puzzlement face than the ordinary rut of hurt.
Wow.
And now because there is a Jerry Pinto that haunts this festival, that Jerry Pinto returns. This is, at one point I was I was invited to a literary festival in Dubai. And they invited me and put me up at the hotel Crown Plaza in Dubai. And this is my love poem to that hotel room. My hotel room at the Crown Plaza, Dubai. I love my hotel room. It was not designed for me, I know. It was designed for a tired businessman with sacks of dollars, a saluki, and 2 mistresses. My room is puzzled by me, and I by it. My room wants to know why I'm not watching the business news. It wants to know why I have to in a dressing gown, talking animatedly to Bill and Barb and Nihar and Emma. Room 1654. This is for you. Room, you are larger than my home in Bombay. Room, you have running water all 24 hours. I wake up sometimes to dabble my fingers in fresh flowing streams. Room, you offer me a view of the city, spread out like a gold souk. Room, you have paintings, original paintings, 4 of them, 2 in the toilet. And I would study these paintings, room, but when I am on the pot, one of them is behind my head. Room, you cost 1,950 dirhams a day, not inclusive of 10% municipal tax and 10% service tax, And that's more than I've ever earned from my poetry. Room, I can barely sleep here because I can't bear to think that I might waste even 1 dirham of that rental. Room, your lights. There's one near my bed, near my head, which turns itself off if I touch it. I don't even have to touch it. I have to stroke it. Or suggest a stroke to it, coming close so that the warmth of my finger turns that light on, off, on, off. Room, I'm a pervert now. Room, your bed, should it be so yielding? Have you no self-respect, bed? Come, let me go. Room of 4 pillows, room before I entered because I have no credit card. Room filled with chocolate bars and pistachio nuts that I would be a fool to eat at those prices. Room, I'm going to bed now. You should sleep too. And please, this transparent door, this picture window to the shower. Room, I'd like some privacy, please. Room. I'm going to take the soap, the shampoo, the conditioner, the shower gel, the shower cap, the pencil, the pen, the envelopes, the writing pad, the tea bags, the coffee powder, the extra sugar, the soft slippers, and one big, fat, white, virginal towel.
Friends, this festival has been built around a few stellar individuals over many years. One of them is Professor Mustansir Dalvi, who is the Swiss Army knife of the Goa Arts Literature Festival. He has the capacity to handle almost every kind of session at the highest possible level. Mustansir, thank you so much for always being here for us. Please come and greet.
Thank you, Vivek. As always, a delight to be here. So, the first poem that I am going to read is a poem called Kintsukuroi, which some of you may be aware is the manner in which the Japanese put together broken ceramics using a mix of epoxy and gold dust, and thereby leaving a trail of its past where it broke. The object continues to be in use, inspired by a sher from Ghalib, which goes like this: और बाजार से ले आए अगर टूट गया, सागरे जम से मेरा जाम सिफल अच्छा है. Which means that, should it break, you go to the market and buy another one. Much better than the bowl of Jamshed, the great king, is this humble pot of clay. Kintsukuroi. I have never believed poetry heals, but words can be bird lime that hold bricks of our fragilities in place. I wonder, Ghalib, could you not have reassembled the shattered shards of your heart rather than run to replace it from the bazaar? Could you not have chosen instead to glue pieces with your felicity? Were you afraid of amending rather than mending your beating chalice? Did you not trust the lacquer of your verse to hold it all together like it does those who hold your divan as a bulwark to their lives? Your words are brickbats to the enraged and juicy but very, very finely cut slivers of pumpkin. And I begin this poem with a line from Baburnama where Babur describes India when he first comes here. And he says that Hindustan is a place of little charm. There are no good horses, meat, grapes, melons, or other fruit. There is no ice, cold water, good fruit, good food, or bread in the markets. And this is the poem. Between sorties and twice daily war rooms, the famished general finds time to kip. Lighter than air, paler than the color of dusk, slivers of pumpkin flesh rise to be enfolded into a dough thinner than a feather cirrus. Pellucid dreams of sunny Andijan summers. On the scrubs of Panipat, stale blood fills the air, chokes every orifice. For what this victory, he muses, when all one has to look forward to is camel meat and care. His digestive tract is seared with cravings for apricots from Marghilan, for muskmelons grown on the banks of the Amudarya, and pomegranates from Khojand. Later in his Diwane Khas, he would weep at the sight of a Fargana watermelon. Babar complains of constipation, triggered through deprivation rather than dehydration. His Khansamas at their wits' end, trying to replicate a memory, steaming dumplings stuffed with stringy kaddu. This next poem is called Narcissus Empties His Pool, which is kind of written for what is wrought upon a larger society by a relatively authoritarian person. This empties his pool. Self-love, self-disgust, triplets born of unnatural union with a land that has since weaned him. He longs for her fairy tale teats that lulled him comatose, nursing him in the comforting half-light of mother myths, purity, and presence. He has smashed mirrors, pulled plugs, drunk the glass dry, muted every echo of the voice reverberating inside him. Now all he can tolerate of himself is this. Now all he can tolerate of himself is his image jackboot stamped on the face of the other. Another pool cleaved. He discards the stick used to poke a hole in its basin, seeks fulfillment in a love only his hands can mold. I'd like to read a poem about the dying of languages. And this is a poem called Tamazit, which is a language of a community formerly given the kind of derogatory name of Berbers. And they are found in dwindling numbers all over northern Africa. Their language, Tamazit, is on the border of extinction. Tamazit. Sand is no longer captured by the litham covering our faces. The cloth remains unsullied as if never used. We wander the Maghreb, speak, and are misunderstood in tongues other than our own. Our mouths forever dry. What would it be like if I spoke only to myself? What could I say? What sense would I make? My mind empties like one half of an hourglass, dripping obstinately into the other, that is the Sahara. My throat is serrated with desire. I want to tell you of the Fezan, of its wadis, of its waters sweet as dates, of the tattoos that make our women. You meet me halfway, in your voice. Every greeting, every civility mediated by the monoglossia of your shrunken world.
Wow.
Couple more. This one is called Brother. I will not die in my bed of old age. Neither will you. I will die in a detention center. You will die a refugee of climate change. I will be dishoused by you. You will be dishoused despite yourself. I will die because of your bigotry. You will die because of your hubris. You could have stopped my death. You could have stopped yours. I will die swiftly, your final solution. You will linger enough to experience regret to its fullest. You are probably reading this now I'm gone. No one will read you when you are. Okay. All right, since we talked about Bombay poets, so one should read a Bombay poem. And this one is called Bhelpuri with Putin. Maybe that should end right there. I am subject to a swift up-down from his minders who then let me be. Neither newspaper cone nor suka puri deemed a lethal weapon. He eyes possibilities east to west. The Bhelpuri wala reads the Vito Corleone finger, pointing accurately, gathers up his favorites and gives them a hearty shake. His choice is dry. Puffed rice ruffles in the hot wind that blows in deference from the street from Crawford Market past PK Wines to the stall next to the mochi shop. I recognize him in an eye blink, but I'm too old to react. The balding, azure-eyed man could be just another day tripper in this quarter of a town full of people from out of it. He eats with a dainty touch, food moves to mouth and further south with hardly a sound, while I scarf down my ragda patties chomping like a cow. My presence is acknowledged, like a new ambassador presented across a long table. My bad oral manners noticed, but he continues to demolish his bhelpuri in silence. We stand mano a mano on the turning to Dhobi Talav, eyeball to eyeball, like a standoff in a spaghetti western. My weapon of choice, a puri, his, a square of cardboard, half yellow, half blue, cut out of an old Cosmo or Vogue, stiff enough to keep kurmura, save, dal and peanuts in entente. Nothing spills, no one talks, time stands still. Perhaps I'll dream of him tonight, spot him eating bhel in his sky blue, Lacoste polo neck and beige chinos. And perhaps in my dream, I will ask him about his latest acquisitions, this country or that region, or maybe ways to counter NATO or stymie the EU, or strategies to suppress dissent internally. And maybe I will try to convert him to ragda patties, to its wet, gooey umaminess instead of the dry chakna he seems to prefer. Perhaps that might make him a happier person, like the rest of Bombay after they have had their mandatory 4 rounds of pani puri. Thank you.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Mustansir. Friends, it may surprise you that by first poetry anthology of poets from Goa, which actually the most inclusive, it includes everyone from, it says scores of poets and it includes even Kamoish, is by our next poet, but he is not from Goa. He is a national treasure, but not of that of India. Please welcome Mr. Gabriel Rosenstock from Ireland. And as he did a kind of a love offering to the literature of Goa with that, he has launched with his anthology of Goan poetry. He has launched a wonderful book which is a love letter to Kashmir, with the artist Masood Hussain, who's also here. It was launched earlier today at our festival. Thank you so much for coming from Ireland, Gabriel. Welcome.
Good evening. I'll just recite one poem from memory. Sometime in the 80s, I wrote a number of books featuring this character, an Indo-Irish guru called Krishna Murphy. So I'll recite the original Irish first, and then the English. I believe that the original Irish is quite earth-shattering, but the English only reaches about 0.2 on the Richter scale. It's called Krishna Murphy agus an Fiachlóid. Krishna Murphy and the dentist. Oscail an Fiachlóid a Krishna Murphy. Ní étan a bheith níos oscailte as a Krishna Murphy reisleis. Leis sin, silsíoch aigine an Fiachlóide. Open, says the dentist to Krishna Murphy. I could not open, says Krishna Murphy. On hearing those words, the dentist became enlightened. True story.
Amazing. Friends, we've been hearing a lot about the Bombay poets. If I were not slightly frightened of her, I might have called her a Shillong poet. One of our best writers who has produced so many wonderful novels and some of the best criticism of the past few years. But this is the first time that I am going to have the treat of hearing Anjum Hassan read her poetry. Welcome to the stage, Anjum.
Yeah, well, actually, Vivek, you're the only one, I think, because since I moved over to fiction, practically no one considers me a poet anymore. Not a poet, but I do write the occasional poems. That's a different matter. The difference between writing the occasional poem and being a poet. So I was in discussion with someone this morning who's definitely a poet, Meena Kandaswamy. Some of you were there, I think. And I admire her convictions. I don't always share them. I also admire the fact that she's so resolutely political, even when she's writing very personal stuff. And I remembered, I think I told her this before we got onto the stage, that the only time I felt moved to write something that could be called an attempt at a political poem was 4 years ago when Anand Teltumde from Goa, yes, was arrested, and he wrote this article in Scroll which said many brave things, and one of the things he said is, which really disturbed me, is that I hope you will speak out before your turn comes. And I thought, he's talking to me, I have to say something. So this was a response to Anand Teltumde's challenge, maybe, but it ended up becoming a poem about rain. It's called the Rain Eclogue. The wind is desperate, sharpened slant, knocks the power out. Quote, almost everyone traverses their lifespan from birth to death with eyes closed. If we open our eyes even for a moment, a great and terrible cry will burst forth from us, and we shall scream and never stop. Unquote. I'm reading one more disregarded novel, and you're mumbling explanations in your sleep. The storm makes tunnels of the lanes between hedgerows and houses, squalling in pain, and I think, what about hearing? Do we traverse our lifespan with our ears blocked up as well? Because try as I might, I cannot hear the howling. The landscape carries no echoes of your distress, not even monsoon furies approximate to how you would break upon us if there was anyone to listen. The rain stops. All returns to stunned peace, the crickets harmonizing with the gurgling in the gutter, and even though you said, describing, dry-eyed, your betrayal as they took you away, I earnestly hope you will speak out before your turn comes. We would rather not open our mouths, not even for a moment, to say what we are, shipwrecked, with all the hulking historical dreck of our divided selves. Last week, when the winds were still playing tug of war between the southwest coast and the Arabian Sea, I took in the silence, how sunlit and lazy. Just the faint buzz of welding on a new roof melding with the sighing breeze and the sweet, silly twittering. And later, walking on that winding road above folded hills that fall away to this same sea, I saw a flash of exceptional blue in the swoop of a bird and tried to memorize the shape of its tail so I could look it up in my handbook. Malabar whistling thrush, remarkably long tail, remarkably long human whistling up and down the scale, thus nicknamed idle schoolboy. With what measure of muteness to honor your saying, woman whose name I've forgotten, I can go hungry, but what to tell my children? And you, man in a million, who said, I'd rather die on the road than stay here. How to offer you more than that stifled scream? How, as the poet said, to hold in a single thought reality and justice? How to save you from becoming a washed-out memory lost to the daily drama of the rain? How the light clouds up every half hour? How romantically the mist drifts in? How fiercely a blackbird knocks at our windows each dawn, trying to kiss its reflection? So I hammered some rusty nails I found in a bag under your desk and strung up curtains on the outside to shut out that cold orange-ringed eye, to resist the battering of its lonely refrain. Our neighbor down the lane who drifts about all day, tending to his fruit trees and flowering plants, worrying about coffee prices and labor shortages, who finds the needle of his suspicion always pointing at Muslims, though he also distrusts the working classes, the feckless poor, the dubious immigrant, but who is all the same a model of decency, served his government, paid his taxes, resisted demands for bribes, dirtied hands only with his native earth. This gentleman tells me such birds can die. That is, willfully break their necks on the glass they're trying to breach. All I can do is make these broken idols with the old phrases my father would bring up to justify literature's superiority to life. Say, the milk of human kindness. Say, sweetness and light. As the novelist knew, our eyes will never open. The draconian speaks elderly rubbish from both sides of his mouth. You, narrow, and we the hard of hearing, and we the dim of sight. And here again the rushing sweep of maddened rain, drumming loud as the cement mixer nearby, with which they're trying to create that elevated feeling the chance to make more money can bring. Plain to see in the valley before us, which is choking with gains, one profitably unpretty house after another. And then it clears to reveal the miners on the electric wires, black on black against the sky's fiddle while home burns. Two poems with a Goa connection. One harks back to what I said in the beginning about not being a poet, who writes poems sometimes, and this was one of the occasions in 2017 when Eunice passed away, and some of us, Eunice D'Souza, the great Bombay poet, the great Goan poet, passed away, and some of us were asked to write poems that were published as tribute, and this is called That Art. I don't write poetry anymore. It's gone with the century past. Laconic, Bombay, square books. Madhu's photos, Dom's typewriter, Eunice's parrot. I glimpse it sometimes on the page. What a graceful white loneliness holds it in. What sublime disregard. I miss reading between the lines. I miss the place where youth grows pale and spectre thin and dies. That long ago pact with quick laughter and ruinous pain. That slow curl of cigarette smoke rising to die on the ceiling. This one is also a Goa poem, simply because it was written in Benaulim many years ago during what I think of as my Goa phase, when just kept circling back to South Goa as a way of escaping something that I'm trying to pin down in this poem. It's called No Sentence. No sentence is as long as the waking moment of the night. Every lunchtime, butter garlic fries, the boys water the lawn. No elegy turquoise rings, the bazaar girls spread their turquoise rings, their owls and their dolphins. No one's earned the right. I watch a butterfly swing by the frangipani. No human is merely human. Even the mosquitoes here dream as they bite. We discuss where to go. No memory sheathes its object tight. The sun drops low, then fades out. The lanterns sway. No one can say now the world's suffering adds up. The waxing moon, the banana flower, the gin on ice. No joy is without gaudiness. No murderer lacks a name. I dream that I've gone missing. Nothing can make time go by without newspapers and screams. And yet, I always find a way to say, I mourn for it because it used to be my life. Thank you.
Such a lovely Eunice poem, gosh. Our guiding light in the festival, we launched a book with the title inspired by how ways of belonging are so important to the guiding principle of this festival. One thing that I'm reminded about is that, once again, it's a kind of conviction that given this location, given the scale of what we are on that side, the only thing that can do justice is actually poetry. And poetry, what an amazing way all of you have. You've taken us across eras, you've taken us across the world, languages, myth, history, and very much the present. And now we will end with a son of the soil, Mr. Ramesh Gadi.
There's an advantage when you belong to Saligaon. Thank you, Vivek, for this honor. You want me to read the translation first or original Konkani first? Even Nigerian, they understand the Konkani. I'm speaking of my neighbors, Nigerian. They sell, I don't know what they sell. Okay. Maka कांयच फरक पडचो ना. म्हाका कांयच फरक पडचो ना. मागीर तुमी म्हाजी तकली उत्तरेक करात वा दक्षिणेक. मागीर तुमी म्हजी तकली दक्षिणेक करा उत्तरेक पूर्वेक करा पश्चिमेक म्हाका कांयच फरक पडचो ना. दिवली म्हज्या पांया कडेन ठेयात, दिवली म्हज्या पांया कडेन पेटयात, नाल्यार तकले कडेन, बुजा कडेन, नाल्यार दाव्या धोक्या कडेन, म्हाका कांयच फरक पडचो ना. उक्त्या म्हज्या तोंडांत तुमी, उक्त्या म्हज्या तोंडांत तुमी मागीर गोड घालात वा साकर घालात, कपलाक काळो बुको लायात नाल्यार तांबडी पिंजर, म्हाका कांयच फरक पडचो ना. मानीचे निश्नीक म्हजे, मानीचे निश्नीक म्हजे कोणी मारचो खान. सरणांक म्हज्या उजो दिवंक पयलो कोणाचो मान. अरे नाका हो तमाशो फुकटो, नाका हो तमाशा फुकटो. तुमी कोणूय पेटयात धोकटो, म्हाका कांयच फरक पडचो ना, म्हाका कांयच फरक पडचो ना. तोंडा वयल्यान मारील बोबो, शिवडो कोण का फोडटलो. तोंडा वयल्यान मारून बोबो, शिवडो कोण का फोडटलो. तांब्यांत भरून तीर्थार व्हरून म्हज्यो हस्ती कोण का सोडटलो. अरे गंगेन सोडात, गंगेन सोडात नाल्यार सोडात, घरा फाटल्या हागुड्ड्या व्हाळात म्हाका कांयच फरक पडचो ना. रांदचे कुडींत बाराव्याक, रांदचे कुडींत बाराव्याक जेवण कसलें शिजतलें. पोरन्यो यादी काडून म्हज्यो शेले कितले भिजतले. सुतीक सोंपले म्हणून दायजी खोशयेन वचून न्हिदतले, न्हिदूं बाबडे, पूण म्हाका कांयच फरक पडचो ना. केळी खोल्यार पिंड ठेवन, केळी खोल्यार पिंड ठेवन कावळ्याक कोण जापयतलो. यो रे कावळ्या खारी पिंड, काकुळटायेन आपयतलो. तो लेवटो मुडी कावळो मागीर चांचयत पिंड खातलो काय पय सोडून वतलो, म्हाका कांयच फरक पडचो ना. कुडींतलें आटोन रगत, कुडींतलें आटोन रगत तुमकां आमी करता व्हड. जाणटेपणी आमचेंच वाजें तुमकांच जाता जड. भाटां बेसां इश्टेटीच फकत आसता तुमची नदर. सांगात कशें लाभलें यश तुमकां आवय बापाय बगर. मेल्या उपरांत नाका विधी, मेल्या उपरांत नाका विधी, महाश्राद्धां पिंडदान. जाता जाल्यार जाणटेपणी दियात आदाराचो खान, दियात आदाराचो खान. I was in Abu Dhabi for 12 years. For the few days first, I was so nostalgic. I used to go to the stables and then go around following the grass cutter while moving the grass. My Goan friends, they got scared. What's wrong with this guy? I'm a thoroughbred farmer. Whenever I used to go to this table, I used to remember my cow shed. And while following the gardener, I used to get the smell of the grass. One of the friends asked me, what's wrong with you? I said, I'm missing the soil of Goa. This guy said, why don't you tell your mother to send some soil in the letter? And in fact, not literally, I told my mother, send me some soil. Please go to the temple and bring some vibhuti. Something wrong with our son, she said. And the poem goes this way. आवय म्हाका गोंयची माती चिटीन थोडी धाड गे. आवय म्हाका गोंयची माती चिटीन थोडी धाड गे. फांतोडीचेर सपनां येता शेतां आनी माड गे. आवय म्हाका गोंयची माती चिटीन थोडी धाड गे. गोठ्या फाटलें तणाकुडें घरा म्हाका आपयता. गोठ्या फाटलें तणाकुडें घरा म्हाका आपयता. किरकिऱ्याचें मस्तें पोर न्हिदेंतल्यान दागयता. नदरे मुखार नेमान येता पंगाऱ्याचें झाड गे. आवय म्हाका गोंयची माती चिटीन थोडी धाड गे. घरच्या शिरब्या हळसाण्याचें सामारेंगे दिसता खायन. घरच्या शिरब्या हळसाण्याचें सामारेंगे दिसता खायन. दांत्यार बसून पोरण्यो वोवयो तुज्या वांगडा दिसता गायन. पोरसान वचून धाडूंक म्हाका मस्का शिंगो काड गे. आवय म्हाका गोंयची माती चिटीन थोडी धाड गे. आय होप यू फॉलो. पयशा फाटल्यान धांवपाचो हो खेळ आमी मांडलो गे, पयशा फाटल्यान धांवपाचो हो खेळ आमी मांडलो गे, कुडी जरी आमच्यो हांगा काळजा गाबे साडले गे. दोळ्या मुखार धांवून येता ती मस्ती आनी लाड गे, आवय म्हाका गोंयची माती चिटीन थोडी धाड गे, आवय म्हाका गोंयची माती चिटीन थोडी धाड गे. My great grandfather 100 years ago came to Saligaon. Then once in a while we visit our ancestral temple that's in Bicholim Taluka. 20 years ago, it was a small shrine we had under the banyan tree. Then the mining came. Then the illegal mining came. Slowly, slowly, the village disappeared. The forest went. The paddy fields gone. There were just big holes. But the small shrine turned into a big temple with the summit, silver summit. So this is about that temple. तेन्ना म्हजी पावलां परत देवळे कडेन वळटलीं. Then my feet will turn back to the temple. That was me. नाका घाटी चौगुडे, नाका घाटी चौगुडे, नाका गंडेल मारणे, आयकूं ताका येता तुज्या काळजांतलें गाराणें, आयकूं ताका येता तुज्या काळजांतलें गाराणें. गाभाऱ्याची बंदखणीत हाली मन ताच्या लागना, भक्तीची भूक ताची कशीच थंय भागना. कोणाक जाय अभिषेक, ह्यो काकड आरत्यो ही दुदान हाडा. तो म्हणटा कोणाक जाय अभिषेक, ह्यो काकड आरत्यो ही दुदान हाडा. तो म्हणटा खुळो न्ही हांव एकट्याक वळखून जाणा. तो म्हणटा खुळो न्ही हांव तुमकां एकट्याक वळखूंक जाणा. वाजोवन आयस्तो, वाजोवन लागला चालीक. देवळांतल्यान वाजोवन लागला चालीक. म्हणटा आनी हांगा रावचो ना. कपलां जरी फोडलीं तरी परत हांगा येवचो ना. कपलां जरी फोडलीं तरी परत हांगा येवचो ना. चल्लो आयज सोडून तुमची धुंवरिल्ली ती गर्भकूड. चल्लो आयज सोडून तुमची धुंवरिल्ली ती मद्यांचेर परत हातान घेवन असो पुट्टी जोड. चल्लो आयज सोडून तुमची ती गर्भकूड मद्यानीचेर परत घेवन उजव्या हातान पेट्टी जोड. तो चुडूच घेवन आयल्लो. दोंगरा रानां पळोवन ताचें काळीज गेलां दुखान जळून. दोंगरा रानां पळोवन ताचें काळीज गेलां दुखान जळून. रुप्या कळस बांदले कशे सगळें ताका आयलां कळून. रुप्या कळस बांदले कशे सगळें ताका आयलां कळून. देवळी सोडून धरल्या ताणें परत रानां दोंगरावाट. देवळी सोडून धरल्या ताणें परत रानां दोंगरावाट. म्हणटा आनी परत नाका तुमचो भांगरा रुप्या थाट. म्हणटा आनी परत नाका तुमचो भांगरा रुप्या थाट. भक्तीची भूक म्हजी जेन्ना तुमकां कळटली तेन्ना म्हजी पावलां परत देवळे कडेन वळटली. तेन्ना म्हजी पावलां परत देवळे कडेन वळटली. थँक्यू वेरी मच.
Friends, it is before 9 o'clock. The end of an incredibly rich day, first day at the Goa Arts and Literature Festival. Thank you all for being here. Thank you all to the poets for really a transporting evening of rare caliber. I will be dining out on it for a long time. I'm thinking about it for a long time. I would like, on our way out, I'd like to assemble all the poets, please, on that little platform over there. Vasudendra as well, please, and we'll take a photograph on the way out, and let's disband for the evening. Tomorrow the program is a very rich one. You will find it easily online. Many of our wonderful authors will be there. Thank you so much to everyone, all the poets. Thank you so much to Mamta and Ramesh Gadi for doing Goa proud in this stellar lineup. Good night.